In a world with limited resources, limited time, and limited budgets, a few brave souls forge forward and don't ask for permission to make their stories come to life. Welcome to the Adventures in Backyard Filmmaking podcast. Here is your host, Jamie Francis. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the Adventures in Backyard Filmmaking podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Francis. I'm really excited about this podcast, and this episode is my first I've recorded. I don't know exactly where it's going to place in the first few are going to be kind of shuffled around. Anyway, this one is a special podcast because I have my brother on it. And the great thing about this podcast is it kind of shows the differences between me and Dan. Although we're twins, we do a lot of things together, filmmaking-wise, and just we've always been creative together. We've always been sort of a team, but we definitely differ on some things. Dan has always been known as more of the writer/artist, and I'm kind of the annoying one now. I've kind of spearheaded more of the marketing end of our creative endeavors, and I just get really excited about it. I'm really passionate about it, and I've found in the last few years is it's actually something I really just enjoy talking about and kind of spreading the word about. And I've got a lot of inspiration from other filmmakers, but also other just internet marketers in general. There's great internet marketers, and this podcast is sort of based around that idea, is using kind of internet marketers, how they do their work, and changing what they sell or their products basically into a film product. And one person I really admire and I follow a lot, and hopefully we can get him on this podcast. Actually, he has said yes to being in this podcast. His name is Scott McMahon. Big fan of his, really nice guy, and he has really has a lot of good insights on what the future of distribution and just how to take your what he calls Uber filmmakers or a backyard filmmaker, these no budget sort of products, and turning them into something more than just something to show your mom. Your mom probably thinks everything you do is great, which is always good. But how about trying to find that audience that you don't know, but turn them into raving fans? And that's sort of the goal of this podcast. Anyway, yeah, Scott McMahon is great, and you can follow him at filmtrooper.com. He has a podcast, he has some materials, and he's actually coming out with a book soon. And we're hopefully going to get him on this podcast. And another guy who, he's too big for us right now, but his name is Pat Flynn, and he has a passive income blog and now podcast that he's been doing for a few years now, and he's huge online. And I've followed him recently, and I really like his approach to building a community around the marketing. Just building a community around him and his brand. His brand is smartpassiveincome.com. You can check him out. Jason Brubaker that I follow, he's at filmmakingstuff.com, and he's very similar to. He's somebody who's been in the trenches of distribution, and he just has, again, just great information on turning. Basically, his philosophy is taking a distribution deal is just not the same as it used to be, and it's more about if you're gonna find a distributor try to get a deal, is try to think of it as more of what they can do for you. Don't be desperate. That's sort of like the underlying thing is come with a plan. And distribution is great, the traditional way, but there's a lot of bottom feeding distributors which won't pay you anything, and they'll say they'll get your movie on the front page of iTunes. Well, is that really something that you can't do on your own? And that's what I've taken from Jason Brubaker's stuff, filmmakingstuff.com. And again, just a really down-to-earth guy, and he just really wants to help out people like us, backyard filmmakers. So I really want to stress too that I am not an expert. My brother here on this episode is not an expert as well. We're just kind of crash coursing this. We're in the middle of shooting and finishing up a super low budget $500 movie, and I'm gonna eventually, once that gets to the idea of distributing it and finding a community around that movie, I'm gonna go through stuff and just trials and tribulations of releasing that movie online and self-distributing, or wherever that movie takes us. And so yeah, just come back and check out more episodes about how we're going to end up doing things. So this is going to be a special front intro to this episode, because this is for special people only. And how do you become a special person? Well, you're already awesome by listening to this, but what I would absolutely love for you to do is go to www.francisbrothersfilms.com/group. And what that will take you to is a Facebook page where you can join. I actually have to approve you, but I will approve everybody. Once you get into that group, you will be a part of this show. I want a great group of a small amount of people to really help push this podcast to a great level as it sort of like goes into this launch phase. This is this is a test, and I just like to see how this works. Basically, my goal with it is I really want to see if I can get onto iTunes new and noteworthy podcasts. And I think with 50, maybe to 100 people giving me a review, giving this podcast a review once it launches, which will be in the next few weeks. And if we can get 50 to 100 reviews right off the bat, I really think that there is a really good chance of getting on new and noteworthy, which would be just awesome. And you guys are awesome. And if you're listening to this and you're still listening to me rambling, I really appreciate it. And just remember that we're just like anybody. We're just learning here too. And like we mentioned in this actual interview with Dan, it is sort of like a Wild West, and you don't really know what exactly works and stuff, and that's why I'm going to try things that will probably either not necessarily fail, but there's ways you can probably improve with it. But you always learn from your mistakes, or learn from just doing things. And I just really appreciate you guys checking this out. I'm really passionate about this podcast and really into the idea. I basically couldn't sleep last night because the reaction, although small, right now I've got feedback from some people I really admire and just great filmmakers, and I'm glad the reaction's been great. Actually, really mind blowing. Actually, so thanks a lot. So again, check us out. Join the group. That'd be, if there's one thing you could take away from this, is checking out francisbrothersfilms.com/group. Join the Facebook group and just start talking about what you want to see from this podcast. You want to maybe you have a guest idea. Maybe you have a connection to somebody who does the same idea, make movies for nothing. Maybe a success story you know of, or maybe you are a success story, or maybe you're not a success story, but you want to let people know what you did wrong and maybe what we can all learn together. I think that's one thing about these Uber filmmakers, these backyard filmmakers, is there's kind of this disconnect where we kind of work in a sort of a bubble, and I really want to bust out of that bubble and let's get people engaged with each other. Helping out other filmmakers is a great idea. Kind of an attitude sometimes with doing with filmmakers and just kind of any art is that you kind of you're a competition with other filmmakers, and I really don't believe in that. I think obviously there's always a little bit of competition with anything, but if we just helped out each other, I think we'll make better movies. We'll have better plans, and we won't. Basically, I don't want anybody to get ripped off. Let's stop putting the money and putting all your hard work into other people's pockets. let's start taking some of that for ourselves. That's basically what the podcast is about. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. And this is my interview with my twin brother, Dan. Hi, this is Jamie Francis, and this is a very special episode. My guest today is one of the greatest writers, and as Kanye West would say, one of the best of all time. Great filmmaker, no budget to the core, and he's also my brother, twin brother, Dan.
Those greats come with a lot of asterisks.
It's like double asterisks on those ones? Triple double, like a Barry Bonds asterisk, right?
I barely can say I'm even a writer.
Barely a writer, barely a filmmaker. It's weird.
Barely a brother.
Barely a brother. We also have a third guest. He's kind of uninvited, but
He'll chime in.
He'll chime in when he has the chance. Little Callie. Yeah, this is gonna be a little interesting. I'm gonna be host. This is Jamie being the host, and Dan sounds a lot like me, but we're going to try to differ as much as we can. We have done podcasts before, and mostly it's just me rambling and Dan rambling about nonsense. But this has got a little bit more focus to it. Oh, there'll be rambling. And there'll still be a little bit of rambling.
I was born a ramble. Oh, we can't do that, right?
Yeah. Let's bring it way back. What made you want to become a filmmaker? Was there a movie that was like that changed the way you thought of, hey, I could actually I could actually do this?
Well, you know the answer to this. I think we were really subconsciously always into the idea of creating, like making movies when we were real young, but just over the last 10, 15 years, it's become so much easier. Very democratic now, and you can pick up a camera and do crazy things with it. And what people are putting out now are just, you go on YouTube and it's amazing what even just what people have been doing with like just shooting on phones, and everyone has a recording device now. It's crazy. If we had that 15 years ago, we'd probably be still in the same spot making shitty movies and procrastinating. It's crazy. But like when I remember we borrowed, not borrowed, we like our aunt's Beta.
It was like a Beta VHS-C, I think.
Okay, and I don't know, we were maybe 10 or something. And we shot a little, I remember like a little spider movie. It was like
Arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia was
with the Tales of the Crypt, literally the Tales of the Crypt.
Yeah,
opening.
We shot like the title. I remember we just shot
right off the TV.
Yeah, but that was probably our first kind of like journey into filmmaking. But I just remember it was still even like, I guess just getting like this Beta cam was like, thousands of dollars, and it was like not in the realm of possibility of getting one ourselves, getting our hands on it for good.
When you think about the quality and stuff, it's just like, it's laughable now.
Yeah, but also like, but it always burned in us that we wanted to do this, and I guess around about 2000, I guess when we were about graduating high school, we kind of
we sort of finally got
like our first video camera, or access to one that we could kind of like play around with and get our hands on the buttons. What was I saying?
I don't know.
Oh, we were talking about the movie that. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, was it actually like a specific movie that made you think that?
Yes, the movie that. Well, okay. Anyway, that was our first kind of foray into moving images, and what kid doesn't want to be like a movie star, right? So it was just that kind of stuff. But without a doubt, it was Blair Witch Project, which is the movie that I would say that we saw. We were, I guess, grade 12, like just about to graduate high school, where like this counts. Where like, wow, this not only is a movie, blowing up the box office. Like, is it still like the biggest independent movie?
I think it's up there still. In different
not
ways.
like really care about numbers, but it was just kind of one of this like.
It's a validation that
it counts. It's in theaters. People are watching it and talking about it.
And it was shot on a high 8, a little bit of film, and it's
yeah,
just
a lot of
footage.
formats actually. But yeah, just so this counts. Oh my God, it's just kids in the woods and following around with a camera and stuff. And sure enough, of course, our first projects were always kids in the woods getting chased around by cameras, invisible forces. But
well, you're inspired for what you see, right?
Yeah, but like, I mean, I don't think I've seen Blair Witch. Maybe I've watched it twice, maybe 3 times, but I haven't seen it in years. But they're still going strong. The found footage stuff, like that's a genre of film, really. Now.
First one that really made an impact. There was ones before that just didn't get the hype and the marketing behind it as much as Blair Witch, but that one's definitely created a genre, and it's like some people would kind of laugh at a Blair Witch, like thinking Blair Witch was something that really changed the way they thought of filmmaking and getting into filmmaking, which but it really was revolutionary in that way. And I remember going with you. We saw it in the theater, which back now it definitely is. That was a theater movie. Like you watching it at home by yourself is just not the same, not nearly the same. But I remember walking. I remember we didn't drive at the time, so we needed a ride home, and we were waiting for our parents. And we walked around the theater probably about 3 or 4 times. It was literally probably an hour or 2 about what are we going to do? How do we do this? We were so stoked. It was like it really just opened our mind to doing it.
I remember, I don't know if it's a direct quote, but I remember I think Mom picked us up, which is kind of weird. But sat in the car. But I remember saying something about like, oh, so cheesy, something like, oh, changed our lives or something. Our lives are changed. But it's weird because, you're kind of a little bit more, I guess less jaded or something when you're a little younger. And, we didn't really know what we were saying or thinking, but it was kind of like, changed our lives in a way where, this counts and we're going to do this. And it wasn't very long until it was probably only like weeks before we got our hands on our a camera and stuff, and did our own Blair Witch project that made $2 billion. That's why we're where we are now.
Where do you think how the technology is going now? How do you see the future? Like what do you see the future of like distribution and how movies are made and viewed? What's your angle on that?
I don't know. To me, it feels kind of like a Wild West, I don't know, where there's so many different ways people see moving images now. It's just crazy. Like in such a short amount of time, you can be on the bus and people are watching a movie right beside you.
Do you think there's a lot of noise? Like, is it like there's like the idea that you can make something cheap, pretty inexpensively, with the gear we have now is so cheap, compared to like what you can actually produce on like a no budget. But in a way, it's kind of created this idea that everybody can be a filmmaker, and there's a lot of content being made. How do you see people like busting through that and like finding that audience, which is obviously the kind of like the number one battle of any filmmaker doing stuff with very limited resources.
Well, it's weird because I think we're actually, yes, there is a lot more stuff out there. Because it's so much easier to do stuff. But that's what's so great is that, you can, if your budget's $100, like you can kind of, you don't have anyone that you're answering to. I mean, there's a lot more creativity really out there now. And good stuff will be watched. They will find an audience. It's word of mouth. They will find it, but it'll be slow unless it's like, you do have anomalies where, you have, say Kickstarter projects. There's that one, that was that Wolf Cop, and then that Kung Fury. It's just so bizarre. that you're gonna find an audience because people are craving that shit. No studio will ever make that movie.
That's what I really think is the key to this whole revolution in a way. This Wild West you're mentioning is you don't need to specifically make a movie for everybody. Like you can make
studios do though.
Oh,
if you're
they
putting
have to.
$1 billion into a movie, that's like.
Well, they're like
theater going blockbuster movies. Like just I don't know. For me, they hold very little interest in me now. They're just like.
Well, the mindset, and I actually learned a lot from my man Scott McMahon from Film Trooper, and basically it's Hollywood. The big studios now we're playing two different games. The no budget filmmakers should not be competing with the studio ideals. They are really just out there. It's all about licenses now, and IPs, right? And so you're basically exploiting those licenses as much as possible to sell as much stuff as they can with specific things. Where in a way, the no budget filmmaker has the advantage because
use it to an advantage.
Use the idea that you don't have to. I don't know where I'm going with it, kind of rambling, but just don't play that game. And that's kind of the. Like why I'm doing this podcast is it's about don't try to compete with that system. It's a very risky business, and that's why you don't see any of the mid-range budgets anymore because they're just standing on these tentpole movies, and that's why the creativity of that's why a lot of people say the studio system is so. Non-creative. It's basically in a way they can't be creative. It's too risky, and that's why unique content coming from Hollywood is so rare. With no budget filmmaking and in general like the Wild West aspect of filmmaking now, where do you see this? Where do you see this going? Where do you see this in 5 years?
Well, that's what I think. That it's interesting because it's very like I say Wild West because it's like I was thinking about it the other day. Like it really kind of is like no one really. Like knows like they're trying to find like there's like kind of the old model is being like still like there's still this dream of like making this Blair Witch Project movie that ends up making $2 billion like making it for nothing and it, like or making some deal like selling it or whatever like some kind of big deal like I don't know. I just don't. I do agree with you where you say that there's like those that big deal. I think like I'm not gonna say they don't exist because I know nothing about. I'm not gonna say I'm even close to an expert or I'm not even a beginner when it comes to like film marketing or anything. But like I know not. I still know nothing. Like I feel like I know nothing, which is fine. But I don't think those big deals like I don't read Variety and stuff, but are those big deals actually happening anymore? Like,
well, I think it's just as rare as it used to be, but now with so much material and content out there, I don't think these deals aren't as big as they once were. But the great thing about festivals and the classic, the old paradigm is you'll always have those nuggets. You'll have the Clerks nugget. These carrots that you'll always have. But I mean, in all honesty, like Clerks is a great movie, like one of our my favorite, and I know your favorite too. But that's 20 years old. That's like over 20 years ago. Where again, Clerks is a great movie, but there wasn't as much content. You really had to risk your butt, like Kevin Smith did.
You could like the phrase like make the feature. People will come, like the Feel the Dreams.
That actually worked.
It wasn't so pie in the sky. Still pie in the sky, but like maybe the pie was bigger. Or
well, now basically making a movie, it all the way up to getting it into somebody's hands. That's absolutely the hardest part now is getting that in the hands because everything else is you can do it on your own.
Well,
to that point,
yeah, like. A good example of kind of like where this is going, I think, is this Kung Fury. Like for an example, I'm not too sure what it raised at the end of the day, but it's kind of moot. But
we'll put a little link to the Kickstarter on the show notes here. But
it raised.
Go check it out if you haven't.
It raised a decent amount of money.
Yes.
But this is like a concept where, like, well, they did say that they had shot quite a bit of it. I can't remember the full story. I have read it a few times, but I can't remember. But no one's really seen anything other than this trailer, which is fucking kick-ass. Like, you got to check it out. Like, it's so awesome. But this is sort of like this, like, it's the perfect crowdfunding movie, because it's like Marvel is not going to come up with this movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what you're getting into with these Marvel movies, for example. But like, this is like, just, there's dinosaurs and there's like time traveling. It's like the perfect crowdfunding movie. What I mean is that, like, they've raised this money to, like, that's kind of like the pie in the sky dream that, kind of should be what people's goals are now. Not the goals, but this is an example of an avenue you can drive down. Like, where you're hyping this thing that's, in theory, not even done yet, or not even shot, right? You're getting like this momentum going. It's kind of almost reverse of, making like this feature, like, let's say an example of Clerks, putting it all on your credit card, and then hoping and succeeding in getting a pretty good deal out of it. Am I making any sense? Like,
yeah, I know.
It's kind of like that's kind of like the pie in the sky kind of dream now.
I think I know what you're trying to get at. Again, actually going into that, like, talking about crowdsourced funding or crowdfunding, is that what you're trying to say? Is that actually, just what's your thoughts on a crowdfunding campaign or a film project? I know you have we differ in our opinions with crowdfunding.
Well, what do you think about it?
Well, I think it's a great way. It's a great way to build a community around a project. Again, like you were saying, that hasn't really even been made yet. But it has to be done properly.
For every success like Kung Fury, there are like thousands that are just Hindenburg style.
Yeah, it kind of goes like, there's just ways to do it and ways not to do it. People don't, like, you have to kind of go with this kind of really pessimistic attitude that nobody really cares about your movie. I mean, it's kind of harsh, but it really is the truth. You have to kind of make people either fall in love with the project or you. And you can do that really well with a crowdfunding campaign that is run really well. But a lot of people think that it's just kind of free money and you do it for the money. Like, but really that's not the way to do it. You use it to build a fan base of, like, one at a time. And perks are huge. If you have a run-of-the-mill perks on your campaign, you're going to get run-of-the-mill results. You have to just involve people with, really be creative. You're a filmmaker that's creative. You have a great story, great idea. Be creative with your perks, and that's it. Really, like, if you have some awesome perks, and keep your campaign goal really low. As low as you can go, basically, and don't bank on everything being crowdfunded, like 100% of your whole movie. Just do little chunks of your project, and also keep the campaign low. And even with the low, you want to get a significant amount from people you just know personally to have that ready to go on at least your first week.
Okay,
have a good percentage of it.
So I have a script that I like, and maybe. I've given it to people and they're like, yeah, they've got notes and stuff, but they like it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to crowdfund it. Like, so you're saying don't ask for $100,000 to fund this movie.
If it requires $100,000 to make the entire movie, I would say that's a little high. I mean, I'm not an expert at all. I do check out a lot of crowdfunding campaigns just as a observer.
Because aren't you going to turn people off if you're like, okay, I have this feature-length script. There's kung fu zombies in it, and stuff, and there's all these effects, and then you're like, oh, I'm asking for $10,000. The people are going to be like, oh, well, that's
not going to be enough to make.
It's not going to be enough to. They're going to be turned off. No.
Don't. Your goal. You got to set your goal properly. Don't make it. If you make it $10,000, don't go. Oh, this is going to fund everything. This is going to fund our music. This is going to fund our visual effects. Really break it down. Like
be specific.
Be very specific. People actually like when there's like a specific goal. If it's just, oh, come make my movie. That's again a term I use a lot, is kind of fluffy. It doesn't get people really engaged with a specific goal. Be as specific as possible, just like your target audience for your project. Don't just go, oh, my demo is 18 to 65, male and female evenly. You know what I mean? Who like watching TV. Like that's basically everybody. Yeah.
That's a great thing about this Wild West thing, is like kind of like figuring it out. Like we're all trying to figure it out, like as a whole. Like there isn't like the way to do it.
Just like anything. But I mean, I would say now we are in a time with this technology that there is not one specific way to do things, and which is I find really great. And there's going to be some great stuff coming soon that's going to be kind of mind-blowing, and I'm really excited to see that. Where do you see, like, just to kind of sum this up, like we definitely got to get you on again, but this is good for like a good setup episode. But what would you say, just to like any kind of filmmaker out there who's just starting out, young kid, and
so like us.
Sure, yeah, still young. 16.
No, I'm not saying young, not necessarily young, but I'm saying we're just starting out. Like that's the thing. It's like,
yeah, I know.
I don't want to paint this picture that like,
oh yeah, we have all the answers.
We've been doing this for 15 years, but doesn't mean we know jack shit. Like,
yeah,
we really don't.
No, but I mean, there's a little bit of I mean, we have been like doing, just dabbling on stuff for a long time, and then making stuff. And where do you like, what would you say to somebody who's young, who like, saying that we sort of had an issue back in the day when we were of age of wanting to start doing this at, say, like whatever, 15, 16, and we kind of had the excuse, even though we still didn't believe it, and we really ventured out as much as we could to just do it on our own. But now where everything is but having a kid now going like, oh, where do I start? It's almost like there's so much stuff now that like the tech is so great. Like where do you begin? Like what would you say to them as just how to get started? Say they have an idea for a movie.
They have an idea for a movie. Put it down on paper. Get it planned out. Get your stuff together. Make it nice and simple. Don't, you can do crazy stuff with effects now with just like simple programs. But you can sprinkle a couple of those if you like effects, do it. The ultimate thing is finish it.
Which we've struggled with.
We still do. Finishing is anyone can come up with an idea. Anyone can, start shooting or write it down and stuff. Anyone can do that. But the actual finish is like, even if it's a pile of shit, just finish it. Just do it. And just move on. Get to the next stuff. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You're never gonna create anything perfect. And don't procrastinate, especially when you're young, when you don't have as many responsibilities. Just go out there with your buddies and get some cuts and bruises, preferably fake ones, but whatever. Break some rules. Do things you're not allowed to do, but not that bad. But
I just wanted to sign off too with just one little story, and this is how not to basically you don't want to kill your actors. That's one key that we've
Kill them on screen.
kill them on screen if you can. But there's I really want to sum this up quickly, but one story that still haunts me to this day is we built a kind of a really crude dummy for a zombie movie way back. This is early. We were probably about 18 or 19 for actually a feature that we didn't end up finishing, and that's going what Dan was saying, how like you just want to finish things and it's you just learning process, and I regret not finishing that movie. One day maybe we'll just put some clips online or something, but we made this dummy and we threw it at the car we were driving, and for some reason it ended up being really, really heavy. Anyway, just totally imploded our windshield. And was that the scariest event we've ever done?
Yeah, and hopefully
we've learned a lot from that, and that won't happen again.
Especially if you're dealing with cars and things that can kill you easily. Yeah,
just avoid that. Especially
be safe.
Be safe. Okay.
When I say, I'm not saying to, get out there and have some fun.
But don't be driving cars. Really, like I would say, try to do as little car stuff as possible. Even though our movie now has cars everywhere. Anyway, I'm gonna sign off. Where can we reach you, Dan? Are you on Twitter or anything? You're kind of like
I hate Twitter. Sorry. I know. Sorry, bud. I hate Twitter too.
Where could somebody find your stuff, or like, do you want to just direct to my our thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
The stuff I'm most proud of is probably on Jay's YouTube channel anyway.
The stuff that I do most of it.
Not true.
I really appreciate Dan's time here, and Callywag's just do you got anything to say? He's quiet now.
Sesame Street.
He wants to listen to Sesame Street. We're teasing him with just the images here, but
it's not the full experience.
Thanks for coming by, Dan, and thanks for
you came by.
I came to his house. Thanks for the coffee, and we'll see you in the next episodes.